You would always want to be on the side of having good credit.
Do you think it pays to have good credit?
How you doing, buddy? Nice to meet you.
Pretty good, Tim. Nice to meet you as well, man. It's been a pleasure to have you on this episode and go over a few things that hopefully we can help each other out with both of our audiences here, man. I want to start this episode off with, just the basics. How did you find me? How did you find the It Pays to Have Good Credit podcast platform? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how exactly do you help people, Tim?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. Um, it's first of all, it's really cool to be here. I actually found you on Apple Podcasts of all places.
Okay.
Yeah. I was actually looking. One of the things that I do is I help people who they don't have money to burn or money to throw away, and or they're just interested in efficiently doing things in life,
Right.
and I teach them how to sell their home without a real estate agent. I'm a real estate agent. I've been in the industry since 2014,
Oh, wow.
and so I've seen a few things come and go. And at this stage of my life right now, the last thing I'm really interested in doing is cashing another commission check. I'm kind of at a point now where I've been blessed. I've got a beautiful family
Mm,
and an amazing life that I don't see how I ever could deserve, and yet here I am just by the grace of God. And so
absolutely.
now I'm at a spot where I'm just trying to give back and help people kind of achieve some of the success that I had and not have to pay $30,000 for it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. I can just tell you right now, just from a personal experience, I grew up in Louisiana my whole entire life. And recently, my wife and I, we just moved to Phoenix, Arizona. So we just had to sell our home in Louisiana. And this was actually our first time going through a process like that. And boy, did I tell you, I was not expecting the amount of fees that we had to pay to sell our home, man. And I mean, it's almost crazy because it's taken years and years and years to grow that equity, years and years and years to pay down that mortgage, build equity in the home. And, we got slapped with like 6% realtor fees and then closing fees. And it's like, man, where did all the hard work go? It's like, and a lot of people depend on their equity to move in most cases. A lot of people use that money for furniture, or they may need that money for their next down payment on their, upcoming purchase. And it's just insane the amount of fees that homeowners have to pay whenever they sell their home. And whenever you reached out to me, I kind of played around on your social media content a little bit. And first of all, you make some great content. So
Oh, thank you.
I'm like, man, this is really helpful, especially for many people who listen to this platform who are trying to build their credit, or they're trying to purchase a home, sell their home, and relocate, whatever the case is. A lot of people are depending on their home's equity to move into that next home. So, what you do, man, I really respect that. And I think that can help a ton of homeowners out there.
Well, I truly appreciate it. And that really is my goal. And, one of the best ways to help people is to sometimes not help them. And what I mean by that is
Yeah.
sometimes people come to me and they say, listen, I run a plumbing company. I'm going through a divorce, kind of sucks right now. But we have to sell this house and I need to squeeze every penny out of it I can. And I tell them,
Exactly.
brother, I would love to help you, but the worst thing I could do right now is to steer you down my path of doing this by owner. Man,
Yeah.
if there's a legal problem with the house, like a divorce or a judgment, or maybe it's a probate, somebody passed away, and you're trying to do this on your own, this is not the right time for that. Okay.
Right.
So what I would tell people then is, and by the way, I don't abandon them. I still help them. But what I do is I then reach out to my network of real estate agents that I have. And I've already pre-negotiated reduced commission rates. So
Oh, that's
even if you
awesome.
find yourself in a position where, look, I would love to do this myself, but I just can't, that doesn't mean you need to be on the hook for a giant commission check going out the window. So
Absolutely.
my students, I send them, and they don't even have to technically be a student. They just affiliated with me.
Yep.
I'll do a warm handoff to a top agent in your area, and they're going to still save you thousands and thousands of dollars versus
Right.
trying to do it by yourself.
Right, absolutely. So another thing, clearly, I own a business called Sturgis Credit Repair. It's a credit firm that help consumers out there who may have those negative items on their credit. We educate people on how to build their credit scores and things like that. With that being said, 80% of our leads come from affiliates, people like loan officers, people like realtors, car sales professionals. Long story short, we just had a realtor in the Phoenix, Arizona area, I want to say maybe 3 weeks ago, who reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, Chris, I would like to partner with you. We do pay like a commission for every lead that they refer to the business." But long story short, this was not your traditional realtor. In fact, I had no idea this type of service even existed. But he was like, "Hey, by the way, if you have clients that's in that local area who are trying to sell their home or whatever the case is, I don't charge your traditional 2.5 to 3% commission rate. I do what's called a flat rate,
Yeah.
commission." And I'm like, I never really heard of that, but man, screw 3% because, I don't think it's fair that homeowners, they get charged based on a percentage because look at it this way. Whenever I sold my home, Tim, it literally was a 1 hour process. Like, my realtor came over, and no disrespect to her, but she came over, walked around the home, made sure it's like actually a legit home and there's not a ton of crap that needs to be repaired. But the home was like maybe 4 years old. It wasn't much to do in that home. And she came in, she did her thing, kind of went over the pricing and everything, and she scheduled the photographer to come, and then boom, it's on the market. It's on MLS, Zillow, and all that crap. So the photographer came and took their photos, is listed, and time went on, and boom, the first person to submit an offer, we just wrapped things up. It was that easy,
Yeah.
and just that quick. 3% of my home value, is taken out of my equity and gone. So look at it this way: if somebody owned a $500,000 house, and their 3% equity that's taken out is going to be much less than somebody that owns a $1 million home. And in my opinion, I just think it's unfair in America that just because you own a higher value home, that you have to pay more in fees to sell your home. So I kind of like the flat rate idea because it doesn't suck up as much of your home equity as the traditional 3%, or whatever the case is, commission rate that some of these realtors charge. But anyway, yeah, he reached out to me, and I think that was something that can help homeowners a lot. What is your opinion on flat rate versus your traditional more commission realtors? Do you think that's saving Americans thousands of dollars as well, or is the for sale by owner still the best route to go as far as saving the most money?
Well, so I wouldn't say for sale by owner is the best route. In fact, flat rate is a great story to tell. Flat rate kind of get, like you had said, it's a great story. People get on the MLS and then
Yeah.
they can potentially sell
Yep.
for not, with a value that's not attached to the sale of their house. But um, I guess I would just put my logical hat on for a second, and I'd say, well, if that was the case, then there would be no commission realtors because flat rate would be what everybody used.
Right.
So there must be something missing there, and I'll give you I'll spoil the ending for you. Uh,
Okay.
the great thing that flat rate real estate agents do, and I'm a huge fan of them, is they get you exposure, but that's kind of where it ends.
Mm.
So there's a lot that goes into selling a house, and it's not easy, but it is simple.
All right.
And I say that kind of like running a marathon is a very simple thing. It's putting one foot in front of the other for 26.2 miles, but by no means is it easy. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where, my program comes in. And this is why I'm such a big fan of educating the homeowner is I don't want them to fixate on the commission savings because yes, that's a beautiful thing. But what's really important here, it's not how much money you pay a real estate agent. It's what you put in your pocket, net bottom line at the end of the day that matters.
Yep.
And in certain circumstances, if you going out on your own after watching one or two YouTube videos, and now you think you're the next real estate magnet out there, and you're going to go sell, I've got bad news for you. 90% of for sale by owners fail, and
Oh,
and
for
the ones
sure.
that do quote unquote succeed, they sell for 11% less than their real estate agent represented competition.
Yep.
So that data tells me, well, okay, I don't know if real estate agents are overpaid. I don't know if they're underpaid, but I
Yep.
do know that there's a big difference between a professionally guided outcome and one that you're doing on your own. And so what I've tried to do is I've tried to say, listen, we all can see that real estate agents are a plus. They are helping you make more money,
Oh,
or
for
helping you sell
sure.
sell your house. Why don't I just give away everything? Everything that I did where I was selling houses for above asking price in a market that was maybe lucky to get 90% of the
Dang.
homes. I was off the market in the first weekend when the rest of the houses out there were taking 80 days. That's just because of the way I approach this. I'm not I didn't grow up trying to be a real estate agent. I grew up in the startup world. And so everything, we're competing against Fortune 10 companies, me and four other guys working out of a closet. You better believe we brought our A game and we learned how to be scrappy. We learned consumer psychology. And that is what it takes to win in this game. It's not just showing up on the MLS. Yes, that helps. It's not just having a nice sign in the yard. Sure, that can help. It's not
Right.
just having a beautiful listing and nice listing photos. Yes, all that helps. It's knowing what to do in what order and having the blueprint and the intelligence and the guidance to do it the right way. And my goal, Christopher, is to make sure that anybody who does this, they don't just do better
Yeah.
than they would have by their commissions. I want them to sell higher and faster than any other real estate agent could have ever done for them, and they can do that.
Absolutely. Yep. Something else that I see often, Tim, since I work and network with so many realtors that's in the industry, I'm on social media a lot. And for some crazy reason, I don't know why, but a bunch of these public, which I don't know why they're public groups, they should be private or closed so the public can't see. But there's these public realtor groups on social media. And every now and then I'll be scrolling and then boom, a post will come up or pop up from that group. And these realtors, I wouldn't say they argue a lot about for sale by owner listings or realtors that cut their commission. They try and sell your home for 1% to cut the other realtors out of the way or, make sure they get the sale. But I see time and time again, I've seen comments from realtors that states, oh, if you're trying to sell a home and you're trying to make both parties only take 1% just to get the sale, we're not going to show our client that listing, or we're just going to skip, or we're not going to recommend that listing. So, I don't know if this is something that you keep secret in your plan here, but if we can kind of talk around it, that would be cool. But what is your opinion on if somebody taking your plan here and master selling their home, for sale by owner, and they're trying to eliminate paying a 3% commission rate on their selling listing. What is your opinion on that when it comes to the buyer's agent coming around and they're saying that the home is for sale by owner? Do you think that would affect their chances of their home being sold? Do you think realtors may see that and they're going to go, oh, I'm not going to recommend this listing because this is for sale by owner and they may not be wanting to pay me much? Or, what is your whole viewpoint or opinion on that?
So it's such a great observation, and it just goes to show you. Look, I got my real estate license in a weekend. And I did that because I'm a real estate investor and I got sick and tired of agents screwing up the deals that I put together. They
Yep.
couldn't negotiate their way out of a paper debt. Now,
Yep.
today, the quality of real estate agent that I hang out with is remarkably different. They're some of the nicest, kindest, most hardworking people I know. My
Yep.
wife is a real estate agent. My best friend, he's up in Detroit and he puts together school backpacks for hundreds and hundreds of school kids who can't afford to spend thousands of dollars of his own money to do it. So, I mean, the I think the real estate agent industry has a reputation problem. Some of it is earned and some of it is unfair.
Yeah.
Sure, every organization has a bottom 10%, whether it's my Marine Corps, whether it's the real estate agent, we all have people at the bottom, and no matter where you are.
For
And
sure.
so sadly, a lot of those people at the bottom are the ones with the loudest voices. And so
Hmm.
that's what you're going to see. And I'm not surprised to hear on Facebook group,
Oh, yeah.
uh, licensed agents outright admitting to malpractice, saying that they're going to withhold inventory from their client.
Yep.
Do you want your license revoked? Do you like that person in a sane world? That person would be just laughed out of the industry.
Yeah.
And shame on us for not policing our other agents to do so. I mean, shame on us. And
Hmm.
that's why this is kind of funny and it's kind of sad. But they did a Pew Research poll. This is probably 10 years ago,
Yeah.
where they actually ranked the members of Congress less popular than chlamydia. Okay, and then
Yeah.
unfortunately, the other end of that joke is they ranked real estate agents less popular than Congress. So
Yeah.
all that is to say, we've got a bad reputation problem, and it's because of stuff like that. So
Yep.
to come around to answer your question, Are there agents out there that are going to avoid for sale by owner? Yes, there are. So how do we get around it? Well, we don't look like a for sale by owner. We
Mm,
have better photos. We have better listing descriptions. We have better presentation. We have in just brutally scary, smart ways that we get consumers to look at us. So I'm not relying on a real estate agent to bring my house to the consumer. The consumer, I'm kicking down their door and I'm saying, check out my house. I know you're going to love it. And they're dragging their agent to the party. As a matter of fact, and let me ask you this: the house that you found in Phoenix, did your
yep.
agent find it for you, or were you looking around online and you found it and you told them, hey, this looks interesting?
Actually, I found everything. I was just
There you
actually
go.
just searching online and I found
You are
it.
nine, and you and 99.9% of the other people out there.
Yeah.
I've worked for buyers in the past, and I primarily worked with sellers, but almost
Mm,
every time a buyer came to look at our home, it wasn't because the real estate agent brought them there. It's
that's
because
true.
they said, hey, Mr. Real Estate Agent, I want to go check this out. So then, and I'm not insensitive to the plight of the buyer's agent because, listen,
Yeah.
they probably will show 30 homes before a buyer picks the one that they really want. It's a
Yep.
very thankless job. It's a tiring job. That's why I didn't like doing it. I almost never did. I almost always worked with sellers.
Yep.
But it gets to the point now though when you're outright admitting, hey, I don't care if this could be the perfect home for the family that I'm working for. If I don't get at least X% out of the deal, they're not even going to see it. Well, that's a scumbag move in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's why in them shamelessly admitting it in public, I mean, shame on them. And
Yeah.
besides, here's the reality. The people who are selling homes, they don't expect buyers agents to work for free because if you are, and I can make this just very simple with dollars
Yeah.
and cents.
Yeah.
If you're selling a $500,000 house out there
Yep.
and the guy next door to you is selling a $500,000 house and he's offering a two, let's call it a 3% buyer's commission. All right.
Hmm.
There's 15 grand he's putting out there. The buyer's agents now sign agreements with their clients that
Yep.
say, if the seller doesn't cover my buyer's commission, then that comes out of your pocket. So if you're saying I'm not paying a commission, you've necessarily taken your house price from 500 and made it effectively 515 when this guy's
Hmm.
still down here at 500 because the buyer is now looking at it and saying, oh, well, since the seller isn't contributing to the buyer's agent fee, I have to add that to my closing costs, which is a
Mm.
terrible place to be. So it's foolish for a seller to undercut the buyer's agent because somebody's going to pay it.
Yep.
And, so let's get the ethics out of it. Let's just look at the dollars and cents of it. Somebody's going to pay it. And if you're not going to pay it and your neighbor does, guess whose house is going to be more attractive to the buyer? Has nothing to do with the agent.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Another thing I like to go over, Tim, and this is kind of more of a opinion-based answer. So look at it this way: there's some things in America, man, is almost like us as consumers, we're brainwashed to think a certain way. So me being in the financial or the credit industry, I look at credit cards a lot.
Yeah.
Why do banks give us credit cards and tell us to only make the minimum payment? That's because banks make money off of the interest. If there's a leftover balance on your credit card every month, you're steadily paying out 25% interest on that card, which is you're never going to get rid of that balance. You're going to be paying on it for years. So I kind of take that same viewpoint and push it more towards your industry a little bit. Do you think home owning or home buying or selling in America, do you think us consumers that we're brainwashed in America to just automatically run out and hire a real estate agent? Why are there not many people that's like just thinking, ding, I just want to instantly sell my home on my own. I don't need a listing agent. I can do this all by myself. Why do you think it's like that?
Well, first, let me just say that is exactly the type of question that I'd expect from a guy who's able to write a whole book on credit, because that's one of the most
Yeah.
mysterious things in the world to me, and
Yep.
it shows that you're thinking really deep about this, and I love that
Absolutely.
because
Yep.
that's something a lot of people don't think about. My industry as a real estate agent that I'm still paying these dues. We spend billions of dollars every year on a psyop that tries to
Yep.
convince you that as a homeowner, you're not legally intelligent enough, or you don't have the sales expertise,
Yep.
or you don't have the negotiation wherewithal, or pick your reason. But You can't do this. You need me. You need me, Mr. Agent, in my weird looking blazer and my fake white
Yeah.
and smile to come up there and knock on your door and put my big stupid sign in your yard. And I've done all these things, man. I listen, I'm making fun of myself more than anybody here.
Yeah.
And so, but the reality is we spend a lot of money to scare people out of doing this. And if anybody just kind of took the time to think about, well, what if I did this on my, so like, I'll give you a perfect example. I sold a house for a guy who would rebuild automatic transmissions in his garage for fun as a hobby. And I'm like, that is one of the most complex pieces of machinery ever known to man, an automatic transmission. And you're
Yeah.
telling me you don't think you could follow a blueprint on how to list and sell your own home? I mean, yes, of course, there are lifestyle reasons why somebody might not want to take the time to do that. Like if you're a cardiologist and you're making $30,000 a day, no, I'm not telling you to take a week off work and prep your home so you can save $5,000 or $10,000. You want to send me to your friend, the brain doctor over there.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
what I am saying is, yeah, you nailed it. We are to our benefit. I mean, you always wonder who's benefiting from this message, and the message that you can't do this on your own, and that you're too inept, and it puts you in too much legal jeopardy. There's a
Yep.
reason that message is out there, and
Absolutely.
I'm kind of trying to counter that with the real message, the real truth, which is, if you can follow a process, if you are willing to use, by the way, please note, I'm not saying that this is not a DIY project. This is a
Yeah.
DWI, done with you project.
With you.
Okay.
Okay. I
Because
love
as a
that.
real estate agent, when you pay me my money, I don't, there's a lot of people who are under the impression that I all of a sudden am doing your title insurance and I'm doing a title search for you and I'm making
Yep.
sure all of your documents are in order. This, I think, no, dude, I hire a title company to do all that. I hire a building inspector to make sure of the structure integrity of your home. I
Hmm.
hire the lender hires an appraiser to give an opinion of value.
Hmm.
It's not just me. Even when you hire a real estate agent, they're not doing everything either. They have a team. So all I'm saying is, listen, use my knowledge, but cut out my commission check and follow the steps that I do. Use my team that I used, and you're going to have outcomes that are every bit as good as, if not better than mine. Because here's the thing that I don't have. I don't have 4 years of experience waking up and going to sleep in that house every day.
Yeah.
I've never made a breakfast in that house. I've never hosted
Yeah.
Thanksgiving dinner. I've never watched the fireworks on 4th of July from your backyard. You are the subject matter expert of your home. And there's nobody out there who should be able to sell it better than you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely I understand that. Trust me, man, you gave some powerful words in that one. I can't lie. Something else that I want to talk about, Tim, and this is probably gonna dig deep into our conversation here, and that is gonna be pricing your home or your listing price. So before we go into that, let me tell you my viewpoint. I'm always
Yep.
digging deep in things, right? So my viewpoint on all of this, Tim, before I owned Sturgis Credit Repair, I worked in the car sales industry. I did that for many, many years. So I've gotten to the point now where people that came into the car dealership and they had a trade in, right? Of course, they wanted the most money for their trade in. If something was
Mhm.
worth $15,000, they're instantly thinking they can get $20,000 for it. So they wanted retail value for their trade in. But then when it comes to the car that they came to the dealership for, the car that they're purchasing, they wanted to take the retail value off of that and buy it for trade-in value. So if the
Yep.
car was 30 grand, they're trying to negotiate and buy it for 20 grand. So
Right.
look, I'm all towards saving money, making money, coming up on top. I get that. But these people are not doing it. They're not thinking like that. They're just thinking imaginary numbers and they go with it. So by me doing that for years and years and years, it has trained me to be more of a guy who prioritizes convenience, right? Because in my viewpoint, I don't have time to waste going back and forth over numbers. You come here, you know what vehicle you want, you've already seen the price, you see the price right there. The price is the price. You should have went to kbb.com and just gotten an estimate based on good value of what your trade in is worth, somewhere in that range. Now, look, if you're coming in, you're trying to wiggle 2 or 3 grand if you're paying cash, sure, but if you're financing, I mean, I wouldn't say that it doesn't matter, but if you're financing, clearly you should be focusing on the monthly payment. However, the total price is still a factor. I get that, but long
Right.
story short, do some of your research beforehand. So, people that are trying to sell their home, I kind of feel like you may see this a lot where people are just assuming that their home is some magical number because they have a goal, they have a plan. They think, oh,
Right.
if I can sell my home for an extra $50,000, that is going to put me in this new home that I probably shouldn't be buying in the first place. But I only want to work with a listing agent who's going to be willing to do that, and kind of like me. Like I said, my examples of me being in the car business for many years, when it came to my wife and I deciding to relocate and move across the country and sell our home and purchase a new home, the very first thing I did was look at the new home values in the Phoenix area. And then after that, I looked at the selling price or the average selling price or listing prices of homes that's in our neighborhood that's around the same square footage,
Yep.
same age. Now, there were some homes we had extended patios and things like that. So, give or take here and there. So, we just used our surroundings as an example. And I sat down with my wife and I said, look, we can potentially get this, and this is what it's going to cost to move. And, the realtor fees may come out to be 6% on both end,
Right.
or total, 3% and 3%. And then we're going to have to pay 9 times out of 10. The buyer that's looking at this type of home, they probably want their closing costs paid. So this is what it's going to potentially cost. If it doesn't cost as much, oh well, this is a bonus for us. And guess what? The day my realtor came over, I sat there quietly. She went over everything. And she literally just kind of told me the same thing. The average time for a home like this to sell in this area or the zip code, what the homes are going for per square footage, et cetera. And then boom, she said, hey, Chris, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think this is where we should start. She kind of written down a listing number, and I kind of giggle internally because one, she pretty much nailed it on the head, but she was like 5 grand more than what I was actually assuming. So, right
Yeah.
then and there, I didn't waste my time. I didn't waste the realtor's time. And like I said, I'm a guy that prioritizes conveniency, right? So I'm not going to contact a realtor to come over and she's like, hey, your home is worth 400, but I'm thinking that I can sell my home for 500,000. That's unrealistic. So, when it comes to selling your home by owner, what is your opinion on homeowners coming up with a price to sell their home? Do you think they should just jump out and just do an appraisal and just list it at that? Should they just buy that up front, do the inspection up front so they know what to expect? Or, do you teach these people on how to calculate their price per square footage and things like that? How does it come around homeowners coming up with a price to list their home?
The first thing to recognize when you're pricing a home is to figure out who sets the actual price for it. So, and I've got bad news for anybody looking to sell a house. If you're not looking at this the right way, the world doesn't care what you want for that house. The world doesn't care what you need to get for that house. The world doesn't care that your brother who's passed on helped you build that deck out back, and so it has sentimental value to you. And they don't care that your kids took the first steps in that house.
Yeah.
The market does not care. The market is going to do just what Christopher did, and they're going to do something called a comparative market analysis. They're going to look at all the other homes in your area that are similar in year, in size, in amenities, and they're going to comparison shop, just like Amazon has taught us how to do. When we need a new coffee mug, we don't care who's selling it to us. We just care that it holds X amount of ounces and it does this right here, and we're just going to comparison shop based on price.
Mm.
So price is the most, and I would almost say the only thing that matters in the beginning as it relates to marketing your property. It is the most important thing to get right. And the worst thing you can do for the overall value of your home is to price high, leaving room to negotiate down. That is old fashioned advice. It works on infomercials and TV. It does not work in a real world where you have competitive bidders. And here's why. Your Because the market is the only entity out there, not the agent, not the owner, not your uncle Larry, who's a broker back in the 70s, because the
Yeah.
market is the only entity out there that gets to decide the value of your home. Would it be better or worse to have, or I should say, would it be better to have more or less people competing over it? I would say
Yeah.
more,
Right.
right? So the more people we get, well, how do we get more people attracted to an asset? Well, one of the best ways to do it is to strategically underprice it. Strategic underpricing does a number of things, but the best and most important thing it does is it gets a lot more eyeballs on it than it otherwise would have. If you try to price high with room to negotiate down, you're going to find zero interest in your home. Maybe one or two people will look at it and they're never going to make an offer because nobody's interested in fighting their way down. But for
Yeah.
some weird reason, and I can't explain it, human beings love auctions. They love bidding against each other. They love it's that competitive nature. The best way to spike the value of a toy is to give it to one toddler and watch the other toddler immediately want that toy. That could have
Yep.
been sitting in the closet for 6 months and they both forgot it existed, but you give it to one and the other one. I'm sorry to inform everybody, we have not outgrown that. We are the
Yeah.
exact way today. And there's a multi-billion dollar company called eBay out there, if you don't believe me. So having spiking this urgency, this scarcity of this asset, and seeing other people compete for it is one of the best ways to get an above asking offer on your home, to get people to bid it far above where you were ever going to do it.
Mm.
So yeah, that is just such an important lesson for people to take home. And I'm sorry if you don't get what you want for your home, you can't force anybody to buy your home.
No.
All you can do, there are tricks though, and I don't know if I call them tricks, if they're strategies, if they're hacks, whatever we call them. But there are things that we do, people in my educational program that regularly help people get far above what they thought they could get for their home.
Yeah.
We do things. We have like very short open houses, maybe 2 hours. I mean, I want there to be a circus in the front yard. I want there to be people rubbing elbows. I want people yelling at each other over parking. And this works because I did this at one house and I just stepped out to get a breath of fresh air and I casually looked to my left and there was a lady writing an offer to purchase on the steering wheel of her car. And
Dang.
that's because there was two other couples in there that she overheard saying, "Hey, we got to get with our agent and get an offer on this place. This is amazing."
Cool.
That is that now let's put ourselves in the opposite position. What if that place was open 8 hours that day and there was nobody else in that home? And do you think she would have left that place and started writing an offer to purchase on her steering wheel? Nope,
No.
she sure would not have. So there are things that we can do. There are things that we can do before we even hit the market. We do what's called a pre-listing inspection, where one of my favorite tactics as a buyer's agent when I was representing a buyer was to go make an offer on a home, lock it up, take it off the market, get the inspection report back, and beat the seller over the head with the inspection
Yeah.
report until they agreed to our demands for a price reduction because I don't know the paint was chipping in a bathroom that nobody's looked at in 3 years.
Right.
Something stupid like that. But that's what they do. And so what I do is I take away the ammunition. I take the ammo out of the gun before they can even point it at me. Before we even hit the market, we do a pre-listing inspection and we address all the handyman level issues on that listing report. Then we have them come out and do a free re-inspection with the punch list diminished. Then when somebody comes to look at our house, we're saying, listen, I'm not dumb enough to believe that you're dumb enough to believe that you think that any house is free from problems because every other seller out there, they're going to tell you this house is perfect. You're not going to find anything wrong. It's going to get full value. We're not coming off this thing for $1. My sellers, they say, listen, this house is a great house, warts and all. I want to be upfront with you. Here's some of the things that we weren't able to fix that we did a building inspection report. Would love for you to take a look at that, but I want you to know what you're getting into. And by doing that, you've immediately set yourself head and shoulders apart of every other seller out there. And that's going
Wow.
to buy you so much cachet when it comes to negotiating power. It's going to buy you a ton of respect when it comes to your integrity. And again, these things in combination, not one of them individually, but doing all of these things together, plus more that I talk about in the course, this is how we spike the value of your home.
Right. Man, that's amazing for sure. Tim, I want to close this episode on two complicated scenarios here. We're going to go by one here. The first thing is, and this is going back to those crazy groups that pops up on my news feed every so often with these realtor groups. I see a ton of realtors get mad when they're initially hired to purchase a home or sell a home and the buyer decide to go a different route. I see posts over and over again where buyers have an agent and they have no communication in like 3 months. The buy I mean, yeah, the buyer's agent don't follow up with the client. They haven't called them, they haven't checked in. They're just waiting for their client to say, "Hey, I found the house. I want you to just set up everything and schedule a showing." That's their mindset. And these may be new realtors, I'm not sure, but they're just sitting around waiting for the buyer to reach out to them and say, "Hey, I did all of your work. I found the home that I'm looking for that's going to fit my family needs. I need you to schedule everything." So take that and look at it as some of these realtors, they're not following up. They haven't contacted the client. And guess what happens? You probably know where I'm going with this. They went to a new builder and their sales rep showed them the home and closed them. They're now under contract, and I know a lot of these agents, they sign an agreement to where they have to get their commission if their client purchased a home without them, or they can't use a different realtor or whatever the case is. But it's almost like these agents, they don't follow up with their clients, and then eventually their clients go somewhere else or they change their route. So I'm gonna switch it up a little bit and put this more towards your side of things. Let's say if I'm a homeowner and I'm already tight on trying to sell my home, and I'm only selling my home because I want to pay off my car. I want to pay off credit cards. I want to use my equity because I just need a restart. I think maybe if I can sell my home and, start all back over, I'll be in a better position. And let's just say it's been 3 months and my home haven't had any showings, and I'm already feeling skeptical because all the equity that I want to use to pay off all of these balances is now going to go towards realtor fees and the buyer's closing fees and things like that. And let's just say I came across your product that can show me or teach me how to do this all by myself without paying 30 grand in commissions. Let's just say I wanted to go that route. How would that transaction work with me and my realtor? First of all, I know that would be very uncomfortable, but do you even advise me to fire my listing agent and say, "Hey, I've done some math. It's been several months, no showings, things has been slow. I think I want to take my home off the market. And eventually, if you do see it come back up, I'm only going to try and attempt to do this myself." How would that conversation go? And do you advise a homeowner to do something like that?
It depends on where they are. So I will tell you from an experience like that, like if you're not hearing from your agent at least every 7 days,
Mm.
you should be already looking for an alternative.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Absolutely. So when I brought on new clients, even if there was necessarily not any news with their listing, I would set up a search radius around their house, and every time a home went pending, every time a new home hit the market, every time a
Yep.
home sold, that is something that I reached out and I talked to that homeowner about, because it matters. If a new home goes pending, well, shucks, we need to figure out how they're different than us that got that buyer to buy that home instead of ours.
Yep.
If it's sold, we now have up to date market intelligence on what the true actual value is of the house. Because remember, the value of the house isn't what we list it for. It's not what we want. It's not what it goes pending for. It's what the actual dollar amount of the check that was written. That's a
Hmm.
sold price. And if
Yep.
we have to pivot, buddy, we need to pivot quick because the
Yep.
market's selling at that price. If a
Hmm.
new home hits the market, it's our new competition. And if they look better than us, if they're priced better than us, again, are we going to help them sell, or are we going to use their listing to help us sell? Okay, I'd rather
Yeah.
be in bucket number two, right?
Yep.
So your listing agent should be talking to you regularly, even if it isn't necessarily to tell you, hey, somebody wants a listing appointment, somebody wants to go see your home, hey, whatever. They should be giving you regular updates. One of the
Hmm.
That's one of the biggest things that I've heard from people. Their complaint is the guy, he threw a sign in our yard and he disappeared and we didn't see him for 4 months.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just outrageous to me. But it also, I put a lot of that blame on homeowners for allowing that kind of behavior. I mean,
Yeah.
they're the boss. When I sold for my clients, I worked for them. I made it very clear. I'll do what you say. I'll give you all the advice in the world, but ultimately you're the captain of the ship and I'm the first mate. You're going to tell me which direction we're going. Right.
That's it.
And so when you have an agent ghosting you like that, number one, it's partly because you didn't set the right expectations. You have the right at any time to cancel the agreement with your real estate agent. I know it varies from state to state. I actually, one of my selling points, and the reason I won so many clients is I put in a 24-hour fire me anytime guarantee, not this 6 months nonsense where you're tied to me
Wow.
for 6 months, whether I did my job or not. Yeah, you put it in writing, and I put it in the addendum. Listen, if there ever comes a time where you wake up in the morning and you say, hey, this Tim Street guy was full of crap. He's not doing what he said he was going to do. I'm going to go list with my cousin Joni. Hey, fine, whatever. I don't care. But do you know how many times that was ever invoked with me? Zero. And it's
Yeah.
because I followed up constantly. I made sure that I followed up enough that they told me when to back off, not me saying, oh gosh, I wonder if I'm bothering them. And guess what?
Yeah.
Again, you know how many times I was told to back off? Zero,
Zero.
never. They never get tired of hearing from you guys. And this is for any real estate agents out there. I love you, man. And you can just do such good in this world. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Keep on your clients. Let them know that you're thinking about them. And so to get back to your original question, should they or can they fire their agents? Yes, they can and they should if the agent isn't living up to what their expectations of them are. Now, are they necessarily going to experience a better life going for sale by owner? Not necessarily.
Hmm.
The attitude that created this monster where you have an agent who's unaccountable to you says to me that you've probably not shown a lot of initiative in driving this process forward, which tells
Mm.
me you're not necessarily going to get great results from doing an effort on your own. So in
Right.
that instance, I would suggest it's probably an agent problem. It's not necessarily a property problem. I would suggest reach out to me. I'll do an audit on your listing. I'll look at what's going right, what's going wrong, and I'll give you an honest opinion. And if I have somebody in your area who could do it better for less than your current agent can, I'd be happy to make that introduction.
Right.
But if I look at it and I say, listen, you're in a really tough market. You're selling a 1 bedroom shack in a subdivision that has 7 bedroom homes with pools and jacuzzis and and you're in a trailer. Yeah, I could see why it hasn't exactly flown off the shelf.
Yeah.
There might be a perfect. So a lot of people blame the real estate agent, and also a lot of sellers, they will browbeat their real estate agent into
Yeah.
what you had touched on before, which is my house is only worth 400, but I want 500 for it. And if you want this deal, you're going to list it at 500,000. Well, this poor real estate agent, it might be their first listing. So they're going to take it out of desperation. If somebody told me that, I would say, so you're asking me to work for free, basically, because I only get paid when this thing sells, and you're pricing this in a way that it's never going to sell. So if that's what you're telling me, there's no point in us having this conversation. I was very lovingly honest with people. I would rather
Yeah, for
disappoint them with
sure.
the truth than comfort them with a lie, right?
Yep.
But there are real estate agents out there who are like, well, I'll stick a sign in the yard and it's never going to sell, but maybe I'll get some leads off the sign. And that works too, but you're not serving your client.
Yeah.
You're not serving your client by letting them believe that lie that they told themselves. So, um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I firmly believe if they're in that position where they've got somebody who's just not doing the work, yep, let's explore alternatives. And one of the ways you could do that is just go into my website. It's Foolproof FSBO. FSBO stands for sale by owner. And
Yep.
I've actually put a quiz together for your audience. So
Oh,
if they go to
wow.
foolprooffisbo.com/quiz, that's where I kind of get into the temperament and your situation. And it'll tell
Mm.
you after 7 questions, I'll know with 90% certainty, hey, you'd be a great candidate to try this on your own,
Oh,
or
wow.
you wouldn't be such a great candidate, but I have people who will help you at a reduced commission. So either way you
Dang.
end up on the path, I'm going to help you.
Absolutely. I have one last thing I want to go over, and let's kind of compare this to the previous scenario where a homeowner is tight on their equity payout, right? They're tight
Yeah.
on the funds that they're going to cash out, and they mainly want to use your program to list their home by owner, obviously to save the biggest buck here. They don't want to pay thousands and thousands to a listing agent. And we kind of touched on this before, but we're going to be more direct this time. And I'm going to, again, use myself as an example here. If I go to list my home for sale by owner, I've taken your program, your course, and everything. I learned how to do all of these things myself, and I have mastered everything that I learned from Tim Street. Well, how am I going to market my home to, let's say, if I want to find a buyer who don't wishes to use a agent on their end? Is that even possible when it comes to selling and buying a home? Is there a way to do this with no realtors involved with this?
It's super possible. If I remember, I bought I bought an old recliner off of Facebook Marketplace when I had shoulder surgery, and I could
Yeah,
only sleep in a recliner. I'm like, I'm not buying a brand new recliner. I'll just get, and I did. So I bought. I didn't need an agent for that. I buy
yeah,
stuff all the time without an agent. I bought used cars. I've
yeah.
bought airplanes. So
There you go.
the point is you don't always need an agent to do things. And so how do we find buyers? That aren't necessarily married to the idea of using a buyer's agent. You find them on those Facebook Marketplace websites. You find them on nextdoor.com, Craigslist. Advertise on all the traditional places, sure, Zillow, Redfin. Get on the MLS through a flat fee provider if that's so. If you so desire that, and I do think that's a good move. But also make sure that you're advertising in the non-traditional places. One of the best ways to do this, and this is one of my favorites, and this is like a super awesome hack that I usually only tell my inner circle, but who cares? I'll share it here since
Yeah.
we're talking about it. It's a neighborhood only exclusive open house. So the Thursday before you hit the market,
Mm,
you're going to either walk around and knock on doors with printed invitations, or you're going to call about 50 to 70 of your neighbors that are immediately around you, because your neighbors, they care even more than you do. If you can imagine this, they care even more than you do about who buys your home.
yeah.
Why? Because they have to live with them. You're out of here,
Hmm.
brother. You're
Yeah.
gone. You're never going to see that place again, but they have to live with it. So what I love to do is I will have my clients call their neighbors and they say, hey, Christopher, it's Tim Street from down from 5665 South Tropical Trail. As you may have heard, I am moving. I got a new job in Seattle. We're super excited. But one of the things I'm worried about is I'm going to have to put my house up for sale. And gosh, you've been here for so much longer than I have. You have so much more experience in the neighborhood. Do you think you might be willing to come over on Thursday? I'm having a really small gathering of neighbors, and I would love your feedback on how I should present my house, if I should do anything differently, if you see anything that sticks out that you don't like. I'd really appreciate your feedback. Well,
Hmm.
boom. So all you've done right there is, number one, you've flattered a stranger, which people love to hear. They love to
Yeah.
be told that they're an expert. But number two, you've enlisted them. They are now part of your private sales army. And you can
Mm,
rest assured they're going to come over on Thursday. They're going to have some wine. They're going to have some cheese. They're going to have some hors d'oeuvres, whatever it is. It's like a combination going away party for this neighbor you kind of don't even know. But guess
yep.
what? You've now invested. You've invested in the success of that sale. And so have all the other people in attendance there. And now each one of them are thinking, who do I know at church? Who do I know at pickleball? Hey, my Uncle Ralph always said he wanted to move here. Let me call Uncle Ralph.
There you
And
go.
that is how you find a huge, you basically take your sales effort from just being you, and now you've got 40, 50, 80 minions out there pounding the pavement, thinking constantly, how do I get a quality person to move into this neighborhood? And
Wow.
that's one of my ninja moves that I love to share with people.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, man, it has been a pleasure to go over some of these topics with you, man. And most of these topics, I just wanted to know myself, because just within this 45, 50 minutes that we've been having this conversation, man, I have learned a lot. And, as you can tell, my viewpoints on certain things in America are, already kind of weirded out, and I look at the deeper picture with a lot of things. But man, what you have explained, it got me wanted to get trained by you and learn to do this next time I'm in the market to list my home, man. But like I said, man, it has been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I'm so glad that you were able to find me and you checked out one of the episodes prior to being a guest on here. But man, I know you kind of touched on it before, but for those who are listening or watching this episode, tell us again on the best route to go to find you, get in contact with you, and how is that process going to work? Once they fill out a form, do you contact them, or do they instantly just start, tackling the course? How would that work out?
So the best way again is let's just find out where you are, what your temperament is. So let's have you take that quiz.
Okay.
It's my website is foolproof FSBO, FSBO. So foolprooffisbo.com/quiz. Now I do have something else for your audience that they might value. I'm not quite as cool as you. I don't have a published book yet myself. I am working on it in the spring, and I would love to actually get your advice on that one day.
Yeah, yeah.
But I am working on that. In the meantime, I do have a smaller ebook. It's meant for a slightly more rapid consumption, and it's a 7-day launch plan, and it literally is going to show you how to take your home from zero to fully ready and capable of getting offers in as little as 7 days. And that's an ebook I'm going to make available for your audience. If they just, again, same website, foolprooffisbo.com/ebook. We'll get that delivered right to your inbox, and we'll send you some emails every once in a while when something cool comes up in the industry. And, once you're inside the ecosystem, you're going to kind of really figure out, one of the things I do is I just try to give everything away for free. I put all my stuff on my content on my YouTube. I give all my secrets away in podcasts, as you just heard. I don't really hold anything back. Now, there are people out there who appreciate that, but maybe they say, listen, I need a more disciplined curriculum. I need an actual syllabus to follow. I need video modules that I can watch and learn this stuff. I've done that for you too. We have weekly live coaching with me. It's a $397 program called the Foolproof FSBO Blueprint. You can check that out if you want. Again, I would tell you, you probably don't even need to spend the money. Just take all my stuff for free that I put out there. But if you're a stickler for order and you love things presented in a certain order, I get it. I'm the same way. That's actually, I created the course for me. Yep. So for people like me because I buy courses all the time. Yeah. And the thing about my course though, is it's 100% guaranteed. So if you fail to sell on your own, not only am I going to refund the $397 that you paid me, again, I'm also going to, at my own expense, find a real estate agent in your area who will agree to work for you at a reduced commission. So either way, you're still going to save tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah, you can't really lose. I've tried to figure it out. You can't. That's why I call it the can't lose guarantee.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's all for this one, Tim. Like I said, man, I thank you again for wanting to be a guest and joining this episode. And, hopefully we can do one of these again in the future. I definitely appreciated this one, man.
Yeah, man, you're really easy to talk to. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir. Well, take it easy and you have a great day, okay?
Yes, sir. You too.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode. If you wish to be a guest on our podcast, visit SturgisCreditRepair.com and click the podcast page to schedule an episode. If you need help with your credit, you can also sign up at SturgisCreditRepair.com and start your free trial today.
Sturgis Credit Repair. Sturgis Credit Repair.